Dr. Jackie's here, changing life loving you. Yeah, that's the groove, life loving you. Feel the truth, move, life loving you. It's all we do, come on through, it's just for you.
I was thinking about it. If you were able to send a letter to your ex, right? When I say the word ex, that already, to me, elicits a sensual conversation. What would you say?
Depends on the circumstance. Depends on the parameter of the breakup, I guess. If it was on good terms, bad terms, that'll dictate the letter for sure.
It also probably dictates depending on who initiated the breakup.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear from one of you.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different pieces to that. You know, there's ways that you can inform your ex about yourself and your future self and who you're becoming. There's things that you definitely, if you care enough and you're not hurt, too much, you can express to them about themselves. So maybe that they can, take steps to better themselves.
Because I think what we're mostly looking for is closure. Relationships end, and really my take on it is this. A lot of times you're in a relationship and you're starting to read the writing on the wall, but it takes courage to really walk away. So a lot of times we're hoping that things are going to change magically, that something's going to happen that hadn't happened so far. So we kind of stay in it for a while. So when that happens and you don't really breach the relationship when you should, it usually ends in a pretty bad way.
It's almost like a double-edged sword. You feel remorse at the same time as you feel this pain.
Yeah.
And now she's hurt you, and it feels like it built up on you, but maybe you should have just saw some of the signs.
Exactly.
Who knows, But all in all, I have to agree with you. At the end of the day, we shouldn't have broken up. We didn't have reasonable reason to break up, but we did, and a lot of it was she didn't know who she was. It's incredible when you don't know that other individual doesn't know who they are.
Yeah.
And they're just complying with things that, you thought were so mutual, at one point.
But I feel like it's hard to make that judgment. You're saying that, you think that maybe you guys shouldn't have broken up because the problems weren't that big. But in earnest, you really don't know how big they were because so many things were unsaid. So now I really want to hear what's going in those letters. And I want you to be really specific.
For me, I think it would just be that you have to know that there's gonna be bad days. There's gonna be obstacles in your relationships.
No, I want to hear it like this. Dear ex.
All right, dear ex, I apologize for not really looking at things from the perspective of what you were going through when we were together. I think that, we could have maybe worked something out if, maybe we had just maybe addressed our problems a little bit more head front instead of putting it to the side and just looking at it from the surface level, not really diving deep into it. We touched on things, but we never really attacked the problem at its root. And I think that that's why we ended up breaking up.
Well, that was healing. I felt something medicinal going on. Thank you, Matt. Who else wants to dive in?
I don't know. My circumstance was different. I genuinely don't hold any resentment towards my ex. It's not something that was, oh my gosh, he did something to me or I did something to him. It was a circumstance of we loved each other. We just had a different definition of love.
What do you mean by that?
I think that's something that a lot of people don't really realize. They don't work out in a relationship and they get so angry at each other because something happened. A lot of times something didn't happen. You guys are just two different people that love in different ways.
So what do you mean by that when you say your definition of love was different than his?
Well, like specifically?
Yeah, I mean...
My definition of love is more, I don't want to say unconditional because most things are not unconditional in this world, realistically, but a lot more unconditional than his. I think that my love ran a little bit deeper as far as what I was looking for, more of an emotional connection, more of a long-term support system versus something very superficial, which was his definition of love. And I don't discredit his love, but it was in a different way. His upbringing.
What did his love look like?
His love looked like a standard male-female role. it looked like, I'm the man, this is what I do as a man. You're the woman, this is what you're supposed to do as the woman. But as far as an intellectual connection there or an emotional connection of stepping beyond that, it wasn't there.
Okay, but I'm having trouble understanding what you mean by stepping beyond.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else is getting what she's
I
saying.
think what she means is that she wants to be loved the way she knows how to love, and he's loving her the only way he knows how to love.
But isn't that what we do in a relationship?
We do, and that's okay, but that's why we broke up.
Because it
And
just
that's
wasn't
okay.
a fit for you.
Yeah, it wasn't a right fit for me. His upbringing was very different. My upbringing was very different. So his perspective of what a relationship was, and I think that's majorly relevant now, because if you don't see a dynamic that works for you and works emotionally for that other person, it's not going to work if that person's dynamic is different. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Sure.
So if I come from and I'm just throwing out example, if I come from a family of parents that have been married for 40 years and, that's a whole different ball game than somebody who comes from parents of a foster home that never even saw a family dynamic.
Right.
So those two people, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you intentionally hurt each other. You just are not on the same page as human beings. And that's what we tend to, in my opinion, we tend to forget a lot in relationships.
But I would really like to hear when you talk about this intellectual, this connection. Talk to me a little bit more about that so that we can understand what is your idea of an intellectual, emotional connection.
For me, it is, that person trusts you. That's a big one. We throw around the word love a lot, and trust is totally thrown on the back burner. And that's, an integral part of loving someone. You have to trust that person.
Yeah, otherwise you can't
or
release
else,
your love.
Or else,
you
what
know?
are you doing?
Yeah,
What are you even
exactly.
working towards? So I think my definition was more trusting, more, like I said, unconditional, even though we need to find another word for that. And his was very visual. His was visual.
Visual as in sexual, or what
Visual,
are we saying?
sexual, visual as what others see about our relationship. We looked good together.
Perception.
Perception, thank you.
yeah.
Our families look good together. We ethnically looked good together. On paper, we looked good together. On paper, we were an ideal couple. Now, rip up that paper, and it was a mess. It was a mess because he only knew how to have a relationship on paper. And I don't. I come from a whole nother, like I said, I'm the one with the parents that have been married 40 years. Whether it's old school or not, that's my reality.
Right.
So, like I said, I have no resentment towards him. My letter wouldn't be like, oh my God, I hate you. Like, I can't believe you did this to me. No, it was, I wish you the best. I wish you nothing but health and wellness and happiness in your following relationship.
I thought you were going to say
But it was
another-
not for me.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
I want to title her letter "Idealism versus Realism."
thank you.
I like
That's
that.
what I want to title that.
That's pretty much, yeah.
No, I can relate to some of that. Mine would go as follows. Dear ex, I apologize for being too much sometimes. I apologize for pushing you too hard. And in the same respect, I forgive you, like I've already told you. I forgive you for what took place and, what ways you hurt me, which ways you were selfish. And in the same respect, I would just, say to her, please heal, from some of the things that you went through prior to me. Make sure that you're whole and make sure that you're moving forward in a more authentic way. Just period. You don't need to fake for anybody. But also be adjustable, which I think I heard you say.
Yeah.
Largely, be adjustable, be able to shapeshift and relate to other people in different arenas, circumstances, atmospheres. And then really just lastly, just own who you are,
that's deep.
and know who you are.
Yeah.
So that this doesn't happen again with anybody else, because I wish nothing bad upon her.
Yeah.
All blessings to her. So.
Yeah.
Nothing bad, all blessings. And that's how we want it to be. But, closure is not always the easiest thing to gain in a relationship. How many of y'all had closure in your relationship that you're satisfied with?
Oh, no, definitely not.
No?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Definitely not.
I-
I've had some, but some definitely not.
But you got to think about what I said earlier, that a lot of times if there's not good closure, it means that you stayed in too long. And so the break in the relationship came as like an absolute crisis. It's like it had to end. And so the ending is always going to be ugly. But when you walk away at the time that you should, that's when you kind of already get that feeling. Once you get this idea that they might not be the one, and then you start to really think, I don't think that they're the one, that's the time to walk away. Life is too short, and you have so much to do and so many other people to love and to give to. So it's like, you know, you let go of what's in your hand, then you're able to receive something new.
I think where we lose, I agree, what ends up happening is that and I think more for women than men, that little thing in the back of our mind that, what if he changes for me? What if his love is so strong for me that he's going to change? He's going to see his ways. And I get that consistently from women all the time. It's, well, he does this and this and this, but you know, if I stay with him and I continue to, then maybe he'll, and that is...
Yeah, but the truth is listen,
know.
So I'm going to give you a paradox about relationships. You know, people say you can't change anyone, and we know that that's true. But you must change if you come to a relationship wanting to be in a good, fruitful one that can go the distance. The issue is, though, one person's trying to force someone to change, and then the other end of the paradox, the person just recognizes that I must change, I must evolve if we're going to become one.
Exactly.
And so that's the paradox. We do have to change. So I find that when you're asking somebody for something and you're kind of like demanding it with that sort of neediness, for some reason we kind of shy away from that. We don't want it. But I think that should be a part of the conversation in your relationships. So I'm wondering, is there some sort of an underlying conversation that needs to be had when you're in a relationship? You talked about the honeymoon phase. Maybe that's the time that we need to be talking about what is going to be the foundation of our relationship. What's going to be our safe word? Not sexually, but your safe word for when we're hurting each other in this relationship, or when we really need to find a new, our next level in the relationship. Because again, you know, you're always changing and evolving. I'm not the girl I was last year. Hopefully neither of you are the same people either. But your loved one is also not the same. So as you're changing and growing in the relationship, we got to make sure that we stay on the same page, and that's only going to happen through a good conversation. So, as we wrap up, I'd like for you all to do a round robin and kind of share what's some advice that, you know, things that you've learned through your last relationships that you'd like to share.
I think pain doesn't always have to be yielded by yourself. I think you can share pain and go through it and heal together. I also think that patience is extremely key. And I think we underestimate how much patience it takes to really tolerate, you know, and be with somebody else and allow somebody else into your space. Oh my God. That's so big. And I think we just have to realize if we're going to be a certain level of selfish, then we can't really be with anybody for real until we figure that space out. So my last piece of advice would be kind of retrospective. I think we have to internalize and really look at ourselves before we point the finger and, you know, do all that externally, to figure out, well, how am I probably pissing her off? How am I pushing her too far? How am I pushing her away even, you know, emotionally, because, you know, sometimes I don't speak about my emotions. So, you know, that's what I would give as a word of advice. Transparency is key, and you know, communication is so vital, but you have to communicate with yourself too, you know.
I think we have a major accountability problem in so many aspects. I think that, like you said, the authenticity that you bring to the relationship is key. And when you have that authenticity and that confidence, that just opens up the door to make the right decision. If you have the confidence to make the right decision, the universe tends to fall things into place. You throw things into place, you know? But like we've already discussed, it's people's authenticity and accountability. That is really, we got to work on it as a people. As women, as men, we got to work on it, because we're no longer going to have families anymore. we're not going to have love anymore. I mean, kids are having sex just because. They don't even understand what it is to connect with another person. Accountability and authenticity, you know?
Okay. Accountability. So that's keeping each other's feet to the fire, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess to add to that, I think that maybe the grass is greener on the other side. Like, you break up and you think that you're not gonna fight with someone else, but at the end of the day you are. And
Yeah.
you know, sometimes you have to just figure out, is this relationship really worth fighting for? And you know, because there are gonna be bad days, there are gonna be fights, and there are gonna be a lot of obstacles that are gonna try to tear you apart.
Right.
And I think that, you know, you just have to know, is this the person that I'm gonna fight for the rest of my life?
I love that you want to fight for. Are they worth fighting for? And so here's a takeaway from our conversation, a letter to my ex. And there's so many valuable nuggets to share. But I think the first one and most important is be who you really are, being authentic. How can you expect anyone to really love a copy of yourself? Be an original. And I think that the person that's really meant to love you will love you all the more because you're really who you are. And then number 2, being accountable. Looking first at me, what did I do wrong, instead of always pointing the finger at you. Taking responsibility. And then number 3, recognizing that all good relationships are going to take some work. And if that person's worth the work, then you got to put in the elbow grease to make it happen. Also, recognizing lastly that not every day is a good day, so we got to love each other through the good and the bad. Life is just one long conversation. So join in. I'm Dr. Jacquie.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie here. I'm your how-to lady. How to do life, how to do love, and how to do you, boo. So click, like, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more to come.